Rutledge discovered him a little later, lurking on the farthest outskirts of the crowd, prowling nervously between the woods and river and keeping a sharp eye on Moki, who was as jumpy as he was. "Why, son, I was wondering where you got to," said the man kindly. "No need to be shy of these folks, you know." "Make too thundering much racket," mumbled Jim. Rutledge laughed. "They're mighty noisy, I'll give you that. But it's the first time they've all been together since the Dallas, and there's a lot to catch up on. A lot to celebrate, too, by golly. Besides, there ain't no danger around here. These valley Injuns are friendly. Folks are safe when there's this many of 'em together." "Safe? Why, I feel safer when there ain't a burgaway within 20 mile. Look there, what's Johnny fixing to do now?" "Well, he's going to give us a tune or two," Rutledge spoke reminiscently. "Don't know how we got across them prairies without the youngster and his banjo. We'd some mighty fine times around the fire at night with the wagons drawn around close." He ambled away a moment later, but Jim didn't notice. He was too busy watching Johnny perched on the tailpiece of a wagon with one knee cocked up and the banjos slung around his tough, lean body. He was laughing, and the curly black lock that always fell over his forehead jiggled in time with the melody he was plucking from the strings. Jim caught only a few notes through the fresh wave of the merriment that rose as Ned Rutledge drew Sally to her feet, called out something to the crowd that was gathering in a laughing, clapping circle around him. In an instant, three more couples were in the center of the circle, and a dance had started, the gayest, most rollicking dance Jim had ever seen. The heavy-booted men suddenly found a lusty grace stamping and pivoting and swinging their partners in response to the orders Johnny was chanting as he strummed out the music. The watchers clapped and roared encouragement. The dancers circled and spun, crossed and recrossed, and wove in and out, the women's skirts swirling like open flowers, the pattern of movement flashing swift and intricate, but always coming out just right. Jim had forgotten all about watching for danger. His rifle trailed uselessly from his hand, and his ears were full of the banjo. Johnny's medicine was powerful indeed, for it could make folks forget the miles ahead and the miles behind, forget trouble and a strange land and loneliness, at least for a while. With a final whirl, the dance broke up in a flurry of laughter and panting people. New squares formed, and Jim, absorbed in the rhythms of a different tune, did not see Sally detach herself from a chattering group and start in his direction. She was within a few yards of him before he noticed her. Her cheeks were flushed and her eyes bright. "James, come dance with us." "Me?" He took an involuntary step backward. No. "It's fun. I'll teach you. I will, James." She hesitated, then moved toward him tentatively and stretched out one hand. Her first gesture across that invisible line. "You're just standing here all alone." He longed to grasp the slim hand held out to him, let it draw him into that charmed circle where the others lived. Could he? Then a fresh burst of merriment from the dancers brought all his shyness back. He turned and fled through the trees, plunging deeper and deeper into the tangle of oak and wild plum and hazel until both music and laughter had faded, and there came to his ears only the small secret noises he knew and trusted. The whir of a wing, a crow's call, the wind. Let them go on and dance. He wasn't going to go back there and be stared at. Let them all crowd around Johnny. He stayed away, prowling aimlessly among the trees or hurling pebbles into the dark, swift river until the night dropped down and he knew the last wagon would be gone. And the next morning, spotting the Rutledge twins paddling across, bursting to talk it all over with Sally, he abruptly went off hunting. Jim spent much of his time hunting those first few weeks, but even as he rode through virgin forest and along the banks of a wild little streams, he could hear the ring of axes, the distant shouts of men to their oxen from the other claims round about. In spite of himself, he grew more and more curious about the Burgaways and their ideas, their hard-bitten, good-humored faces, and their ceaseless labors. Why did they want to fight this good country so? Why did they insist on growing wheat and raising potatoes when they could fill their stew pots every day in the year from woods and streams? Why must they mark off a tiny space of ground and chain themselves to it when they could have 1,000 square miles to wander in? He could not quite put down the queer fascination he felt for these people's clothes and belongings. He would lurk in the trees surrounding a new-built cabin, watching a man sharpening a plow or uncrating a massive sideboard, or a sun-bonneted woman unpacking cups and plates and pewter spoons. Then he'd ride slowly on to his deer tracking. One day it was a smell that stirred him. He had made his kill, a good young buck, and was riding home at his leisure, eating a chunk of warm, raw liver off the point of his knife, when Moki trotted alongside and the laden mule clomping behind him. He had just splashed across the stream that bordered the Mills's claim when an enticing, oddly familiar odor drifted to his nostrils. What was that? Something from long ago. He left the animals in the thicket and crept forward. Through the trees he could see the Millses' half-finished cabin and the cook fire that smoldered near a battered wagon. He watched a woman take a steaming skillet from the ashes, then, unbearably attracted by that half-remembered fragrance, he left the trees and moved across the clearing, still chewing the last of the liver. He had no thought of sneaking up on her, but his moccasins made no sound, and when she turned, she found a feathered Indian at her elbow, his face, hands, and carelessly held knife smeared with blood. She dropped the skillet and let out a screech that frightened Jim fully as much as he had frightened her. "What the Sam Hill?" gasped Mr. Mills, stumbling around the corner of the cabin. He stiffened at the sight of Jim, then suddenly relaxed. "Oh, Lordy, it's Johnny Keith's brother. What do you want, son?" "It's all right, Martha. Will you hush? Nobody's going to scalp you." Jim spoke warily. "Well, what's that in the skillet, that?" "In the skillet? Why, it's hoe cake." "Good jumping Jiminy, boy. Look at the blood on you. What have you been doing?" "Just eating." Mills's wife edged rapidly toward the cabin, motioning back her children, who had appeared from all directions. "For the land's sake, Ben, give him some hoe cake. If that's all he wants, give him anything." Jim rode homeward, wondering angrily if he thought he'd been eating Burgaway babies. Johnny Keith's brother. He'd never yet walked into the post at Willamette Falls without hearing that phrase, without feeling curious or doubtful or suspicious eyes following him around the room. "Don't worry about it, Jim," Johnny always advised when he complained about it. "They don't trust you because they don't know you yet. And they've heard a lot of tales about you keeping wolves for pets and held up at the trader at the Dallas with a knife at his throat." And Johnny's wide grin would flash. "I do my best to squash all that fool talk, but the truth is, I don't know you very well myself." Would they ever get to know each other, Jim wondered. He often caught Johnny studying him as he sat around the supper fire at night, staring at his necklace or his braids or his scars as if trying to penetrate the barrier of those 9 years by sheer willpower. And Jim did his share of watching, puzzling too, wishing he knew how to make medicine like Johnny made it, with a warm smile, a banjo, a pair of candid, steady black eyes. Johnny didn't know how to trap or steal horses or even read signs. There was never a man who didn't like and trust him on sight. When Jim reached home with the tale of his bloody hands and Mrs. Mill's reactions, Jonathan laughed until he shook, but then he grew thoughtful. "That'll go the rounds," he said. "Why don't you steer clear of the other folks for a while, Jim? I can sure use you here." He jerked a thumb toward the meat rack, now dark with much smoking, and the fresh killed buck and the numerous pegged hides. "Ain't you about through with that job by now?" "Them hides? No, they got to be sunned some more and then twisted. I mean the hunting." Jim looked at him in surprise. "Why, thundering, Johnny, you don't never get through with hunting, no more than you get through with eating." "Well, sure, but we got enough meat to last a good while, and we always get squirrels or fish to fill in. Seems to me the important thing right now is to get our cabin up. Well, with you and me both logging." "You mean you want me to start chopping trees too?" "Yeah, anything wrong with that?" "No," admitted Jim glumly, "but looky here. Supposing we chop all them trees and sweat a couple weeks more to get the cabin built, and then we want to move on. We can't fold up the cabin and take it with us." "Move on? Good Lord Almighty, who wants to do any more moving? I had a belly full of that last summer." He came around the fire and dropped down on the grass beside Jim. "Why, this is home. It's what we come all this way to get. Now we got it, and we can take root like one of them old fir trees. Don't you get that feeling, Jim? Look yonder at the glades. We'll have them knee-deep in grain by summertime, and a kitchen garden by the woods there, and smoke coming from our very own chimney. This place is ours, Jim. Soon's the surveyor's around, and you sign that claim, 640 acres of it. Debt-free. Man, I ain't doing no moving, I'll tell you that. We're staying put." Jim listened dubiously, envying the glow in his brother's dark face. "I'll help you, Johnny," he said finally. "I'll start logging tomorrow."